Welcome back. You are listening to Tuttle Talk here on the Real Estate Radio Network every Sunday, starting in January now at 4 p.m. on 660 a.m. The Answer. So we're so happy to have you with us. I'm your host, Andy Tuttle. Been in the mortgage game a long time and the real estate game a long time. And I am so excited to have actually here on the show with me today the city manager of Forney, Brian Brooks. Brian, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Andy.
Man, I want to get right into it. So, I actually probably was a little less aware of this than I should have been, but I know that because we have an insurance expert on the show, John Allen, owner of Texas Community Insurance, and we talk about how Dallas is one of the riskiest places to live in the nation. You get wind, you get hail, you get hurricanes, you get tornadoes, you get everything, right? Everything, ice storms. And so specifically in that submarket, one of those places that was hit worse than anyone was Forney a couple of years ago with the tornadoes.
Correct.
So what happened there?
Well, it obviously was a regular day that turned very bad very quickly. It was one of those situations where it's a once-in-a-lifetime thing, and you hope it's a once-in-a-lifetime thing.
Yeah.
It was probably about 10 minutes of pure pandemonium, followed by weeks and months of recovery that you just don't expect to deal with. I mean, we're all aware of the risk out there, but as a city manager or as anybody who works in city government, you really don't actually anticipate it happening to you. Yeah, but there we were in April of 2011 dealing with a pretty tragic tornado.
So for us, outside of Forney, you're in it. You get the news, you're watching tornadoes hit, and they give some 10 seconds, 30 seconds. They do a quick 7-second interview, and you kind of go, wow, tragedy has happened. That's really bad. And then the next day, something happens in another state, and we're distracted from it, and we forget.
Yeah, that's correct.
So you don't forget, though. You're living it every day. What was it like that next day back, that next week back?
Well, some of the memories that I have of it, and frankly, some of the stuff that I experienced were, from a professional level, were some of the most rewarding experiences. Never would do it again, mind you, but it was a rewarding experience because the stuff that you got to see is actually what I got in the business for in the first place, which was helping people. And I know that sounds a little camp, but the reality behind it is I vividly remember waking up the next morning and heading out to the neighborhood that was hit so hard and listening to the fire alarms in the houses as they were destroyed. All these fire alarms, because they lost power, were going off, and you could just hear this chorus of fire alarms going off. And so that's when it really dawned on me how widespread this really was. And the reason why it kind of occurred to me there was in the silence of a 5 o'clock in the morning, you really got to see, without any ambulances there, all the mass of people that were responding to it from first responders were gone, and you see the devastation left behind. And then that's when it hits you. We've got a big job ahead to clean this up. And I've got lots of wonderful things to say about how the Forney community pitched in, but at that moment I was honestly afraid.
You're listening to Tuttle Talk here on the Real Estate Radio Network. We're talking to the city manager of Forney, Brian Brooks. Brian, you mentioned that kind of it hits you. You hear all the fire alarms. It's like a kind of an eerie music, made by those fire alarms. It's kind of like, it probably was surreal, like a movie a little bit, I'm sure.
Absolutely. That's the best way to describe it. It's almost very surreal.
Yeah. And so now you, as a city manager, are you involved with, because I don't know if I'm as familiar as I should be, and I'm sure a lot of other people aren't, as far as the involvement you have as a city manager with the homeowner, the community, the citizens of your community, and the challenges you face on a daily basis since then. So would you do me a favor and tell me a little bit about what your involvement has been like on a daily basis, and then what's happened since then? Now, how has the story progressed?
Well, just in the hours afterwards, we already started seeing an outpouring of support. That was immediate, and that's not something we didn't expect in Forney. I mean, Forney's for most people, Forney is a small town. I mean, we're 20 minutes from downtown Dallas, but they think of us as a small East Texas town. Now, sometimes it's frustrating because you don't realize how close we are, but I'm sort of okay with folks thinking we're a small town, because with that small town comes a small town attitude. And the folks that rallied around almost immediately, the amount of volunteers, the amount of donations, the amount of people that just jumped out was amazing. It made me actually very proud to be from Forney, and very proud of a community that really picked itself up and dusted itself off and got back to business as usual as quickly as possible. But one of the things that I think Forney really learned about itself is that it's a lot more resilient. I mean, we've been through bad economies time and time again. We've been through all sorts of issues over the years. But even with a tornado, it doesn't really. There's a spirit in Forney that keeps it going, and I think that's probably the most important part.
So, to give some context to this, and people think, well, New Orleans, now that was a tragedy from the hurricane, but that's a city of millions. This is a city of 15,000, but the outskirts give it up to 40. Is that right?
Correct.
But there was, am I right, $300 million worth of damage?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
That is catastrophic. That is for a city of New Orleans. It's this equivalent. You look at per capita, I mean, there is a ratio where for them, that's a similar tragedy. And so when I look at it and I see what's happened now, you have come leaps and bounds. So we know where you were. $300 million worth of damage. There was a lot. The tragedy hit Forney. You were involved in not only what happened, but then you had to get up and, like you said, dust yourself off, and the city did. And then you got a game plan to go, okay, well, how do we fix it? How do we raise the money? How do we find the money? How do we go ahead and reinvigorate and rejuvenate where we live? So where are you at today, and what do you attribute where you're at today? What do you attribute that to?
Well, first of all, I mean, I think one of the things that occurs to you as you're going through this cleanup is business doesn't stop. That's the sort of the beauty and the hectic part of city business. You don't get to stop for anything. You still have to provide all the services you were providing the day before the tornado as you do the day after the tornado. Plus, you have all the responsibilities on top of that.
And real quick, services like
police, fire, water, sewer, economic development, planning, all the services that cities provide.
Right.
And so when you realize that, you see that the tornado just added a layer of complexity on top of it. And frankly, if this would have happened, I don't know, maybe even 10 years earlier, it might have been harder. I think what we've got in Forney, which I think is part of the formula to our recovery, is we've got an excellent staff that jumped with both feet to get things taken care of, getting the tasks of the regular responsibilities on top of all of the tornado response. That was a huge part of it. The second part of the formula, I think, was the part that most people miss, is the community outreach. And I mean, I've stated it a lot because, again, you don't get to see it that much. I mean, you do hear in my job, you hear people complain about government a lot. You don't see people pitch in not just to help government, but mostly to help their neighbors. I mean, once the people realize that the city is, I mean, we're all in this together, and that the city is something that they have ownership of. I mean, that's what Forney really stands for.
I think it's a great thing to stand for. I think people don't think about Forney maybe like they should. And I hope that, if you're listening you heard Brian say 20 minutes outside of Dallas. It's downtown. It's close. It's not East Texas. You're not almost in Louisiana here. You're really close. And you miss a couple of things when you hear about we talk about the big areas in Dallas a lot, Dallas proper and North Dallas, and some bigger areas in Plano, the big ones that you cover. And Forney is not to be missed. And so, Brian, in closing here, what do you think? What have you learned personally, and what do you think your city has learned publicly or globally from this tragedy? Well,
one of the things that you just brought up is, the mindset of the Metroplex typically looks at a lot of the other suburbs, and Forney is often not lumped in that suburb within those other suburbs. That's actually not a bad thing for us. Forney is very unique. I'm a product and child of the Metroplex. I was born in Dallas and raised in Plano, and one of the things that attracted me to Forney was it's not just your typical white bread suburb. It's got it's got a spirit behind it. It feels like a small town. It's got everything that the big town needs, but it does have a lot more character. It has a lot more history. It has a lot more charm than a lot of folks in suburban metroplex really don't understand. But people are starting to pick up on it, and I think that's where a lot of the results that you're seeing of the recovery and the growth in Forney is coming from.
I love it. If people want to find out more about the City of Forney, where can they go?
Best place to always start is website, cityofforney.org. We've also got a pretty active Facebook page. We do have a young audience out there, young citizens, so they always demand as much information on Facebook as possible. So go out there and like us. I like it. So. Guys,
go right now. We're going to have the link to their Facebook page on our fan page. And so you can look that up on Tuttle Talk and find the link to the City of Forney Facebook page, so you can go like it right from there, and also go check it out at cityofforney.org. Brian, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate the chance to be here.
You bet. And all the best to you and your city with the small town feel. I love it. Thank you again, and we look forward to getting more updates from how the growth is going there.
Excellent.
Awesome. Okay, coming up, you know how you wonder it's Christmas and you want to save some of those extra dollars. Get every dollar you can. Well, now, because you bought that extra big Christmas present for yourself that you shouldn't have, we're going to show you how you can make that worth it, because you've now earned it if you stay tuned to our very own CPA, Joe Mastriano. He is the killer IRS CPA. He's going to show you some of those last-minute tax deductions you need to take that are going to help you feel like you've justified that Christmas present you bought for yourself. Next.